Let's stay with the notion of changing behavior, but shift focus from design to time. Because of the rapid acceleration of information and communication, time has become our most precious commodity. Earning people's attention and keeping it has never been harder. In Christiane Lemieux's new book, Frictionless, she explains that modern consumers have no tolerance for unnecessary expenditures of time, and that successful businesses will be built or reworked around this premise. Christiane sold her furniture company DwellStudio to Wayfair in 2013 and went on to co-found the wholesale workroom Cloth & Company, the direct-to-consumer upholstery company The Inside, and a new brand, Lemieux & Cie, which has just launched through Anthropologie. Her first business book offers new rules of entrepreneurship and business. Please join me in welcoming Christiane Lemieux. There she is. Christiane,
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you, Dennis.
So great to have
Very
you.
excited to be here.
I'm
Talking
delighted.
over you already. There you go.
That's how it's going to be.
That's how it goes.
Yeah. You're an entrepreneur many times over, a writer, furniture collections. What led to writing a business book? And tell us what Frictionless is all about.
Well, I think it's pretty easy. I started my first company, which was a home furnishings company, called DwellStudio in 2000 when I graduated from Parsons School of Design. And I sold it to Wayfair in 2013. And when I started looking back, had I written a book then, it would be worth, nothing more but, kindling for that fire.
A book about your experience
About
and
my
sort of what you
experience.
learned.
Yeah.
You feel like that would be worthless
Worthless,
today.
because everything has changed. And so taking that experience of brand building and then going to Wayfair and understanding the sort of really intricate e-commerce of that and the technology, and then walking out the other side and then starting 1, 2, 3 businesses since then. What's amazing to me is, everything's changed, every single thing. And COVID turned out to be the sort of pressure cooker for that. And so people that were on the right road have really done well in this particular, what I call the sort of digitization of humanity. Like, we all became digital citizens over the last 5 months. And so the people that were on that road already, the businesses, the individuals, have really seen hockey stick growth. And the incumbents that weren't necessarily as savvy, as frictionless as some of these other players haven't fared as well.
So the companies that were on the right road,
Yes.
what road were they on?
Well, they were probably on the road paved by Jeff Bezos,
Okay.
which was, some of the things that have sort of proven to be successful are large supply, so endless SKUs, great shipping, free shipping, short lead times, all of these things. And it sort of doesn't matter. It's kind of industry agnostic. So that's everything from grocery all the way through to home furnishings. And I think people and businesses that made this easy for the consumer to transact digitally have really done well.
A lot of entrepreneurs in their pitch to venture capitalists talk about removing friction from whatever the process is or whatever the industry is that they're coming into. It was all about disruption, right?
Yes.
Now it's about sort of removing this friction. When you think about the home industry, which has historically had lots of
Tons of friction. We signed up for like the mother load of friction.
Right. So, but now you've got a new product launch in the home space, a new collection with Anthropologie. How were you thinking about Frictionless when you were thinking about that launch and that collection?
Well, I was thinking about it, first of all, the way we see things and market things and the way we speak to consumers is completely different, right? So if I think about my first business, I sent a press release into the ether and hoped somebody saw it. I got a booth at a trade show and hoped somebody liked the product. I had wholesale customers and hoped they did a good job displaying and selling the product. Then we slowly added on e-commerce platforms. So then I got to speak directly to the customer, part of my business book directly to the customer. Now, this time around, building a brand from digitally first is really interesting because it's all about, and especially for our industry, which is all about beauty and interiors and space and images. So I started there. instead of starting from the trade show booth. I started from Instagram and Pinterest and all of these other things. So it's sort of a shift in how you do it, but the end result is still the same. I mean, good design still moves our world.
You talked earlier about some of the learnings from Amazon, and you talked as well about the time that you spent at Wayfair, which I know had a huge impact on your way of thinking. What were some of the most important things you feel you learned from your time at Wayfair?
Well, I think, first of all, that people will buy this category online. So for a long time, people said, oh, Christiane, nobody will ever buy a sofa online. And I thought, well, that may be true now, but I don't think it's going to be long term. So I learned that. I learned that customer service is paramount, especially in our world, because you're going into people's homes and you are helping them create the spaces that they live in and love. And so the great thing about the sort of digital landscape is that you can talk pretty freely with people and really help them. And so not only did I learn that at Wayfair, but doubly have learned that through the last 5 months when everybody has focused on their home and everybody wants to tell a story and our homes have become our everything. And so having that dialogue with the consumer is really important. And then flawlessly executing. Because if you need a dining room table and somebody tells you it's coming in 4 weeks, it better be there in 4 weeks because you may be having a dinner party 4 weeks and 1 day later. And this is really about helping people live their best lives.
We tend to talk a lot about the consumer side of the business. Mm-hmm. How does this fit in with the designer-driven side of the business? And how are companies that are thinking about how to better approach that market think about the investments they're making in technology and e-commerce? Because it's a struggle a lot of them are having right now.
Sure. Well, I think that with that kind of perspective of our industry has gotten really interesting because I think more than ever, and I just read the McKinsey report that said they don't think that travel is going to bounce back until 2024. So all of that disposable income that people spent on leisure and other ways, they're going to focus on their homes. And so what that means to me as somebody who has a 30,000-foot view of all of this is that interior designers are going to have opportunities now that they've never had. And if they are able to frictionlessly speak to and transact and design and use all of these platforms that are out there, their sort of consumer landscape isn't just the people in their area now. Their consumer landscape is people across the globe. Like I just got somebody texted me today, DM'd me through Instagram for a project in Singapore. And I could probably do that now. I could probably do it because I could use Zoom or some other platform and actually do it and transact that way. And so what I think is amazing about all this is that there's so much opportunity for the trade. If they put the right frictionless mode in place, they'll be able to do it, and they'll be able to grow beautifully, I think.
So let's drill down on what we mean when we're talking about frictionless. So your book that you wrote was in part what you learned from a series of interviews, yes, with business professionals. So tell us a little bit more about that. Tell us who you spoke to and sort of what were some of the big takeaways from those conversations.
So I spoke to probably 60 entrepreneurs, and then I narrowed them down to about 30. But sort of the connective tissue was this idea of frictionless. And what I learned, and I think we all know this intuitively, but what I learned is sort of the frictionless transaction of anything, whether it's home furnishings or healthcare or renewing your driver's license now. I mean, all of it is easier. The less friction there is, the more your customer will come back and work with you. I mean, to the point where I am sure you have your 5 favorite apps, places, whatever, for the things that you do the most, and you go back to them on a near constant basis because it's frictionless for you, right? It's 1, 2, 3, and it's done, whether it's Seamless or Amazon. And that kind of ecosystem that allows people to do what they want to do in a very quick and efficient way gives them back personal time. And so what we're seeing, the seismic shift here is that the things that used to take us 2-3 hours can now take us 1 to 2 minutes. And the more you do that frictionlessly and the more you help people kind of regain this digital time, this found time, the more they will love you. And if you do the opposite in any way, if you throw up roadblocks, if you make it difficult, they will go, and they will go for good, because the other thing about e-commerce and the digital landscape now is that, generally speaking, there are 1, 3, 5 at least competitors to any kind of business idea. I mean, even Amazon has its competitors. They aren't necessarily doing as well because they're not as frictionless, but it's out there.
Are there companies that you think are really doing this well? I know that you've got a favorite airline, for example, that you think really executes this sort of notion of frictionless very well. Tell me about that.
I mean, yes. So I think there are many. I think about it as how quickly can I get from the thing that I need to do to it being done, right? And there's a scale, and how easy and how is the user experience? How flawless is the user experience? And there is a very much a sort of spectrum of that. Some things are very easy to do, some things aren't. I mean, to me, Amazon is the most amazing because, it's 1-2, it's Amazon Prime, everything is done. There's nothing, there's no wallet. I am infuriated now if I have to put in any kind of credit card information because it should be seamless. It should be the Amazon wallet or the PayPal wallet. And I think that there's ways to take all of that, the ethos of that, and apply it to any business. And the interesting thing about the business landscape now is that people that are doing that and doing it flawlessly can actually disrupt very, very big incumbent businesses. And the businesses that are stuck in the old mode of doing things are also feeling that. So it's really interesting. And COVID really it was like the pressure cooker, it was like the Instapot of this. Yeah. And the people that did it flawlessly really have done well.
So a lot of what we're talking about in this conference and elsewhere is sort of the durability of some of the trends that we're seeing taking place. And perhaps Wayfair is a perfect way to sort of look at that. So, So Wayfair experienced, as we've talked about and I've written about, this explosive growth in their last quarter, right? 5 million new customers in the quarter, and all these people stuck at home. Suddenly, they had their first profitable quarter since coming public. But can that last, and is that something that the company should be building out on with the assumptions that that's going to continue, or is there another message in there?
So that's a really interesting point. And I interviewed Neeraj for a piece, and he said something really interesting to me, which I will bring to the table here. He said that yes, they probably had between 3 and 5, maybe 10 years growth or adoption in that very short period of time. He also cited to me, which I thought was really interesting, is the grocery business. And so it was the least sort of penetrated business online because people want to go to the grocery store. They want to pick out their avocado or smell their honeydew cantaloupe or whatever it is. However you handle your produce, but generally speaking, that had the lowest penetration. And during COVID, because of everything that's happened, people went online and shopped for groceries. Sure. And here's the thing. They actually loved it. And so there are the diehards that will still, go and buy their produce, but generally speaking, the grocery adoption was huge. And so I think what we're going to see on the other side of this is people will, because they became digital citizens and have tried all these things, and I'm sure your mom was like, Dennis, I can't believe I Zoomed with my grandchildren. It was amazing. My mom calls me every day. I'm like, welcome to the 21st century. Yeah. But the things that people have learned and loved, they will continue to do because it saves them time, it's frictionless, and it's easy.
So I guess for companies that aren't Wayfair, how should they be thinking about their priorities right now to sort of maximize their potential of taking as much business as they can during this time and sort of growing that out longer term? What should they be thinking about? What should they be prioritizing?
Well, I think they need to make sure they have a digital presence, first of all, because some people don't. Sure. Right? I think they need to think about what it is they specialize in and how can they take that and make it as frictionless as possible for whomever they're trying to reach. So the designer, there are a million things in our industry that Wayfair can't do, right? And a million things in retail that Amazon can't do. And there's this really beautiful artisanal quality to furniture interior design, all the things that we do that are individual, one-to-one. And I think you can do that. You can do it digitally, and you can do it frictionlessly. And I think it's starting this really authentic conversation with people that may not be in person for a while, but you can do it really beautifully using technology.
Getting back to your conversation with Neeraj and sort of how he's imagining going forward for the company. So we assume that for the next year at least, perhaps we have these tremendous tailwinds behind the home industry. Mm-hmm. For a company like Wayfair, does that mean expanding into all sorts of other markets that they weren't into, or where do you think they go during this time? How do they ride this energy that they're experiencing right now?
I mean, I'm not entirely sure, but I could guess that. I mean, for them, it's about, in any kind of digital-first company, it's really about acquiring the customer and then having them repeat with you. So really flawlessly and frictionlessly speaking to them, understanding both, from the AI and an algorithm what they're looking for, and to the extent they can, servicing up people's needs. I think it is, in our industry, pushing style, choice, and design always. And really, I think that it's all of our job to inspire people, to help them find the best home, to create the best home they possibly can. Because, on top of everything else, that's taken on like a real deep new meaning for all of us.
Yeah. What does it make you want to do as a result of all of this? It sounds like a lot has changed in your world, and perhaps a lot of your thinking has changed as a result of the book and the research, but also just everything that's happened. What are you going to do?
I think for me, I'm really thinking about like how do I, but also how do we as an industry help people live better lives, right? And I think the interesting thing about being at home for, 5-6 months now, and really sitting in your home.
I've forgotten myself,
I know,
frankly.
But it has such a profound effect on, how we feel, how we think, how we live, our families, our own experience. We have the privilege of holding hands with people to literally make their dreams come true. And I think for me, I take it really seriously now. I would like to spend my time helping people have the best space they possibly can so that they can live their lives the way they want to. And the interesting thing is that all the rules are gone there too, because our living room is our dining room, is our gym, so how do you help people make this environment that they live in exactly what they want? And I think there's ways to do it. And I think a lot of it is about conversation. And I don't think there's an algorithm that can do that, or, seasonal trends. I think it's really deeply personal, and helping people figure that out it's almost like being a space therapist.
Well, so what does this would-be client in Singapore want you to come do? What would you go do for that client?
I mean, I'm going to. I guess they're interested in all the designs that I put out, and okay. I guess I'm going to try it, virtually design for them, and see where it goes.
So be a design firm.
I mean, everything. An agency, a design firm. I don't know.
Okay.
Are there any rules anymore, Dennis, though? That's the thing.
Well, no, and maybe that's the lesson from this time. Maybe there aren't any rules. Maybe you go where it takes you.
I think you go where you take, and I also think there's opportunity, especially for everybody in our industry, everywhere. And so I think the more people can access you, talk to you, the more you throw the rules out the window, the more you say yes to everything, we're all going to figure it out.
Well, and it seems also with you, the more that you put forth a brand that people really want to participate in.
That's right.
Right? Because you're constantly, I'm not even sure what you're doing half the time, honestly. You seem to be doing so many different things, but that's part of what the allure seems to be that brings people to you and sort of want to participate with you in some way. So maybe it's through your furniture collection. Maybe people think that you're a designer for them, and maybe part of what comes out of all of this is just sort of the barriers and the boundaries get eliminated.
Well, I think that's precisely it. I think that's exactly right. I think that in all of this, we've learned that we can actually speak to each other as human people. Not only that, we sort of want to. And it's in when you start that conversation, whether it's digitally but most likely frictionlessly, we can start to do things. I mean, anything's possible. And I think that that's what I've learned not only in the last 5 months, but also going from what at DwellStudio was a very traditional business model into the world of technology. Because millennials and my kids are Gen Z, they feel like they can talk to anybody. Whether you're the CEO or whatever the latest TikTok superstar. I mean, it is very open and free, and I think that we need to bring that into what we do, make it easy for people, and
absolutely
go from there.
Anything is possible.
Anything.
That's the takeaway message. Thank you very much, Christiane. This has been great. I really appreciate it.